There is something that happens when you walk into a room. You may not notice it yourself. You may have learned, over years of quiet observation, to focus outward so completely that you rarely turn that attention back toward yourself. But others notice. There is a shift in the air when you arrive, a subtle recalibration. People who have never spoken to you find themselves wanting to. Conversations that were surface level suddenly go deeper. Strangers confess things they have never said aloud, and you stand there, absorbing all of it, wondering why you feel so exhausted when you have not done anything particularly strenuous. This is the strange, invisible life of the empath. Not a mystical creature, not a superhero of sensitivity, not someone blessed with a special gift that makes everything easier, but a human being whose nervous system is wired in a way that makes the emotional world louder, more textured, more demanding than it is for most people around them. A person who does not simply observe the feelings of others, but absorbs them, processes them, carries them, often without realizing whose feelings they are actually holding. If you have ever cried without knowing why, and later learned that someone close to you was going through something painful, you understand. If you have ever walked into a gathering and felt a wave of anxiety wash over you before a single word was spoken, and then watched the tension between two people in the room slowly become visible to everyone else, you understand. If you have ever left a social situation feeling hollowed out, scraped clean, needing hours of silence just to feel like yourself again, you understand. And if you have spent most of your life wondering whether something is wrong with you for feeling this much, this deeply, this constantly, then this is for you. Because here is the truth that most conversations about empathy miss entirely. The experience of being an empath is not simply about being kind or compassionate or emotionally intelligent. Those things may be present, but they are not the core of it. The core of it is something more fundamental, more physiological, more psychologically complex. And understanding that core is not just interesting, it is, for many people who live this way, genuinely life-changing. Let us start at the beginning, with what is actually happening inside you. Neuroscience has given us a concept that begins to explain the empath's experience, and it involves something called mirror neurons. These are specialized cells in the brain that fire not only when we perform an action ourselves, but when we observe someone else performing that same action. They are the biological foundation of empathy. When you watch someone wince in pain, your mirror neurons activate in patterns similar to those that would fire if you were experiencing pain yourself. When you see someone's face fall with grief, something in your own nervous system responds, as though that grief is partially yours. For most people, this mirroring system operates in the background. It creates enough empathy to function socially, to feel connected, to understand others on a basic emotional level. But for some people, this system appears to be significantly more active, more sensitive, more permeable. Researchers have found that certain individuals show heightened activation in these mirroring neural networks, which means they do not just intellectually understand what someone else is feeling. They feel it in their body, in their chest, in their throat, in the sudden shift of their own emotional state. This is not metaphor. This is not a personality type someone chose. This is a nervous system responding to emotional information, the way other nervous systems respond to physical sensation. The empath does not decide to absorb the room's anxiety. The empath's nervous system does it automatically, the way a sponge does not decide to absorb water. It simply does, because that is what it is built to do. And here is what makes this so important to understand. When you have spent your entire life feeling things this intensely, you often do not realize that not everyone experiences the world this way. You assume that everyone walks into a tense room and feels that tension physically. You assume that everyone leaves difficult conversations carrying the emotional residue of what was said, replaying it, processing it, feeling the other person's pain as something almost indistinguishable from their own. And so when you feel exhausted or overwhelmed or drained in ways that seem disproportionate to what actually happened, you blame yourself. You tell yourself you are too sensitive, too fragile, too much. But you were never too much. You were simply operating on a frequency that most people around you could not hear. There is a concept in psychology called sensory processing sensitivity, and it was studied extensively by psychologist Elaine Aron, who identified a trait she called the highly sensitive person, or HSP. Aron's research found that roughly 15 to 20% of the population processes sensory and emotional information more deeply than others. This is not a disorder. It is a trait, a neurological variation that has likely existed throughout human history, because in certain contexts, it offers genuine advantages. The ability to detect subtle changes in the environment, the capacity to read social dynamics with extraordinary precision, the sensitivity to notice what others miss. But the research also found something that will feel immediately familiar to anyone living this experience. Highly sensitive individuals are significantly more affected by both positive and negative stimuli. Beauty moves them more deeply. Music reaches them in places others cannot access. But pain, conflict, cruelty, and emotional turbulence also land with far greater force. The same openness that allows profound joy also allows profound suffering. You cannot selectively close the door. When it is open, everything comes through. And for the empath, that door is almost always open. If this exploration is resonating with you, please like this video and subscribe to the channel so you do not miss what comes next. Think about what this means for daily life. You are not simply navigating your own emotional landscape. You are simultaneously processing the emotional landscapes of everyone around you. The colleague who is quietly furious but saying nothing. The friend who is performing happiness but is actually falling apart. The stranger on the street whose grief is visible in the way they carry their shoulders. You sense all of it. You take it in. And unless you have developed very specific, very deliberate practices to process and release what you absorb, you carry it with you. This is what creates the particular exhaustion that empaths describe. Not the exhaustion of physical labor, not even the exhaustion of emotional labor in the conventional sense, but something more like the exhaustion of a radio receiver that never gets turned off. A constant incoming signal, a perpetual processing of information that most people around you are not even aware is being transmitted. And here is the part that rarely gets named clearly enough. Because you absorb so much from others, it becomes genuinely difficult to know what is yours and what is not. You might feel a sudden sadness and spend hours trying to understand where it came from, only to discover later that the person you spent the afternoon with was in the middle of a profound personal loss. You might feel inexplicable anxiety before a difficult conversation and wonder if you are being irrational, not realizing that you were already sensing the emotional charge of what was coming before a single word was spoken. Psychologists call this phenomenon emotional contagion, and it happens to everyone to some degree. But for the empath, emotional contagion is not an occasional experience. It is a constant one, and the inability to reliably distinguish between what belongs to you and what you have absorbed from the world around you creates a kind of internal confusion that is deeply disorienting. Who am I, separate from what I feel from others? What do I actually want when I am not busy attending to what everyone else needs? What is my own emotional state stripped of everything I have absorbed today? These are not small questions. For many empaths, they are the central questions of a lifetime. I want to pause here and ask you something. When did you first realize that you were feeling things other people did not seem to feel, or feeling them in a way that others did not seem to understand? Leave that moment in the comments if you feel comfortable sharing it. You might be surprised how many people reading your words will recognize themselves in them. Now let us talk about something that the source of your sensitivity often traces back to, because for most empaths, this trait did not simply appear from nowhere. It was shaped, in significant part, by early experience. Attachment theory, developed by John Bowlby and later expanded by researchers like Mary Ainsworth, tells us that the patterns of connection we form in early childhood with our primary caregivers create templates, internal working models for how we relate to the world and to other people for the rest of our lives. A child who grows up in an environment where emotional attunement was inconsistent, where love felt conditional, where safety depended on reading the emotional state of a parent accurately, learns very quickly to become exquisitely sensitive to the feelings of others, not as a gift, as a survival strategy. If your emotional safety as a child depended on knowing when a parent was angry before they showed it, you developed the ability to read micro-expressions, to sense shifts in tone, to detect the subtle atmospheric changes that precede emotional storms. If you grew up in a household where conflict was constant but unacknowledged, where tension lived in the walls and no one named it, you learned to feel what was not being said. Because knowing was safer than not knowing. Because preparation, even unconscious preparation, felt better than being caught off guard. And the nervous system that learned to do this as a child does not simply switch off when the circumstances change. It keeps scanning, it keeps sensing, it keeps picking up signals, because for a very long time, that scanning was how you stayed safe. That sensitivity was not a weakness. It was intelligence. It was adaptation. It was a child doing the most sophisticated thing possible with the information available to them. This is what psychologists sometimes refer to as hypervigilance, a state of heightened alertness developed in response to environments that felt unpredictable or unsafe. And while hypervigilance in its most acute forms is associated with trauma, many empaths carry a milder but persistent version of it, a baseline sensitivity that never quite settles, a nervous system that is always slightly on alert, always monitoring, always taking in. And here is what makes this so important to understand, and so important to hold with compassion. If your sensitivity was forged in an environment that required it, then your empathy is not simply who you are. It is also what you learned to do to survive. It is an adaptation that served you then, that may be serving you still in some ways, but that also carries costs you were never meant to carry alone. This does not mean your empathy is not real or not yours. It is profoundly real and profoundly yours, but understanding its origins allows you to approach it differently, to honor it without being consumed by it, to recognize that the same sensitivity that helped you navigate difficult terrain as a child deserves to be tended to carefully now, not weaponized against you by a world that does not always know how to receive it. Let us talk about what happens in relationships, because this is where the empath's experience becomes most complex, most beautiful, and most dangerous. When an empath is present in a relationship, something shifts in the other person. Not because the empath is performing anything, not because they are trying to create a particular impression, but because the quality of attention an empath offers is genuinely rare. They listen in a way that most people have never been listened to. They notice things that no one else notices. They respond to what is actually being communicated beneath the words, beneath the carefully constructed social presentation, beneath the persona that most of us wear almost constantly in public life. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist and founder of analytical psychology, wrote extensively about the persona, the mask we construct for the world, the professional self, the socially acceptable self, the self that knows which emotions are appropriate to display and which must be hidden. Most of our interactions happen between personas, surface meeting surface, mask meeting mask. It is functional. It is socially necessary. But it is also profoundly lonely. When an empath enters a conversation, something different happens. They are not responding to your persona. They are responding to what is underneath it, to the anxiety you are performing as confidence, to the sadness you are wearing as indifference, to the longing you have buried so deeply you have almost forgotten it is there. And when someone responds to the truth of you rather than the performance of you, the effect is extraordinary. It feels like being seen, really seen, perhaps for the first time. And humans are profoundly hungry for that experience. This is why people become unusually drawn to empaths, why conversations with them feel heavier and more meaningful than conversations with others, why strangers confide things they have never told anyone, why relationships with empaths seem to accelerate in emotional intensity, reaching depths in weeks that other relationships might not reach in years. But here is the hidden cost that almost no one talks about. The cost that lives on the inside of the empath's experience, invisible to everyone who is busy, feeling seen and understood and magnetically drawn. When you are the one doing the seeing, when you are the one receiving the confessions and holding the emotional weight and sensing what is unspoken, you are not simply having a conversation. You are working, constantly, invisibly, often without recognition or reciprocity. You are processing not only your own emotional experience, but the emotional experience of everyone in the room. And that labor is real, even when no one acknowledges it, even when you yourself have learned not to acknowledge it. Jung spoke about projection, the psychological process by which we unconsciously attribute our own inner material to other people, our unmet needs, our suppressed desires, our shadow, the parts of ourselves we have not yet integrated. And empaths, because of their depth and their receptivity, become powerful screens for others' projections. People do not just see the empath, they see what they need the empath to be: the safe person, the understanding person, the one who will finally get it, the refuge. And the empath, trained by years of attending to others' needs, often absorbs these projections without recognizing them as projections. They take on the role that is assigned to them. They become the container for everyone else's emotional material. And over time, this creates a particular kind of exhaustion that goes beyond tiredness. It is the exhaustion of a self that has been so consistently oriented toward others that it has lost reliable contact with itself. This is what psychologists sometimes call enmeshment, a blurring of the boundaries between self and other that makes it difficult to know where you end and someone else begins. Not because you are weak, not because you lack a self, but because your entire relational history may have trained you to prioritize others' emotional states above your own, to the point where your own inner landscape became something you navigate almost as a stranger. And here is the paradox that lives at the heart of the empath's experience. You understand everyone, and yet you may feel profoundly misunderstood. You see others clearly, and yet you may feel invisible. You give so much, and yet you may go to bed at night with a hollow feeling, a sense that something essential is missing, a quiet ache that you cannot quite locate because it does not belong to anyone in particular. It simply belongs to you. That ache is real. It deserves to be named. And I want to ask you something here, because this is a question that matters. Has there ever been a moment when you realized that what you were feeling was not actually yours, that you had absorbed it from someone else without knowing? What did that recognition feel like? Share it in the comments if you are willing. Those small moments of clarity are worth naming out loud. There is something else that happens in the empath's relational world that is important to understand, and it has to do with the particular kind of people who are drawn to them. Because the empath's sensitivity creates a kind of gravitational pull, and not everyone who is pulled toward them has healthy intentions, even when those people believe they do. There is a pattern that therapists and researchers have documented repeatedly, a dynamic that often develops between people with high empathic sensitivity and people who have significant, unmet emotional needs. Whether from narcissistic tendencies, anxious attachment, or simply a profound hunger for the kind of emotional attunement they never received. The empath's capacity to see and feel and hold creates exactly the kind of environment that someone with those needs finds irresistible. And what often develops is a dynamic of emotional caretaking that can slide, gradually and almost imperceptibly, into something that depletes the empath at a fundamental level. The empath gives, the other person receives. The empath senses the need and responds to it. The other person feels seen and becomes more attached. The empath, trained to prioritize others' emotional states, gives more. And the cycle deepens. This is not the fault of the empath, and it is not always the fault of the person drawing on them. It is a dynamic, a pattern, a relational structure that emerges from two people's psychological histories meeting in a particular configuration. But understanding it is essential, because without awareness, it can repeat across relationships, across friendships, across family systems, across professional settings. The empath finds themselves again and again in the position of the one who holds everyone else together, the one who absorbs the pain, the one who makes it safe for others to fall apart. And somewhere in the middle of all that holding, they forget to ask who is holding them. This is not weakness. This is not failure. This is what happens when profound sensitivity meets a world that has not taught you how to protect it. Let us talk about what happens inside the empath's body, because this is something that rarely enters the conversation about emotional sensitivity. And it is crucial. The nervous system of the empath is not simply processing emotional information abstractly. It is registering that information physically. The stomach tightens in an uncomfortable social situation. The chest constricts when someone nearby is in pain. The shoulders carry a weight that does not belong to them. The jaw holds tension that was generated by someone else's unexpressed anger. The body becomes a recording device for the emotional weather of the environment, and over time, that recording accumulates. Research in psychosomatic medicine has consistently found connections between emotional processing and physical health. Chronic stress, which is what unmanaged empathic absorption creates, has measurable effects on the immune system, the cardiovascular system, the digestive system, and sleep. The body keeps a record of what the mind absorbs. And for the empath who has spent years absorbing without releasing, that record can manifest as chronic fatigue, digestive issues, tension headaches, immune dysregulation, and a persistent sense of physical heaviness that no amount of rest seems to fully resolve. This is why the conversation about empathy cannot stay only at the psychological level. It has to include the body, because the body is where the emotional processing actually lives. And tending to the empath's well-being means tending to the body that has been quietly holding all of this, often for decades, without being given language for what it was carrying. Polyvagal theory, developed by neuroscientist Stephen Porges, offers another lens for understanding the empath's experience. Porges identified 3 states of the nervous system: a ventral vagal state of safety and social engagement, a sympathetic state of fight or flight, and a dorsal vagal state of shutdown and collapse. For most people, the nervous system moves between these states in response to actual threats and actual safety. But for someone with a highly sensitized nervous system, The system can be triggered by perceived emotional threats, by the emotional states of others, by the atmospheric tension in a room, even when no actual danger is present. This means the empath's nervous system may spend significant time in states of activation or mild shutdown, simply from navigating ordinary social environments. The party that feels overwhelming. The workplace that feels like walking through emotional minefields. The family gathering that leaves you needing days to recover. These are not signs of weakness or social anxiety in the conventional sense. They are the predictable responses of a nervous system that is doing exactly what it was designed to do, in an environment that provides far more input than it can comfortably process. And here is what is important to hold alongside this. Knowing this does not make you fragile. It makes you informed. And being informed is the beginning of being able to care for yourself in ways that actually work, rather than simply pushing through and wondering why you are always so tired. Because the empath who does not understand their own nervous system tends to develop coping strategies that are understandable but ultimately costly. Isolation, withdrawal from relationships that feel too intense, numbing through distraction, through overwork, through substances, through anything that turns the volume down. Or the opposite, throwing themselves so completely into the service of others that their own needs become invisible even to themselves, because helping feels like the only thing that reliably makes a sense in a world that is always too loud. These are not character flaws. They are adaptations. They are the empath doing their best with the understanding they have. But they deserve to be replaced, gently and gradually, with something more sustainable. So what does that look like? What does it mean for the empath to begin learning how to inhabit their sensitivity without being consumed by it? It begins with what might be the most difficult thing the empath has ever been asked to do. It begins with turning the attention inward. The empath is extraordinarily skilled at attending to the emotional states of others. This skill is real and valuable and not something to be dismantled. But for many empaths, this outward attention has become so habitual, so automatic, so deeply ingrained that the inner world has become somewhat unfamiliar territory. The empath who can read a room with extraordinary precision may struggle to answer the simple question, how do I feel right now, separate from how everyone around me feels? This is not a failure of self-awareness. It is the predictable result of a lifetime of training attention outward. But it means that developing the practice of inward attention, of regularly checking in with what is genuinely yours, of distinguishing between your emotional state and the emotional states you have absorbed, is not simply a wellness practice. It is an act of profound self-reclamation. Therapists who work with highly sensitive individuals often introduce a practice of what might be called emotional inventory, a regular, deliberate pause to ask, what am I feeling right now? Where am I feeling it in my body? And crucially, is this mine? Did this feeling arrive with me, or did it arrive with someone else? This practice sounds simple. For the empath, it can be genuinely revelatory, because many empaths, when they begin doing this consistently, discover that a significant portion of what they have been carrying on any given day does not actually belong to them. And there is something both relieving and grief-inducing about that discovery. Relieving because it means you are not as emotionally volatile as you feared. Grief-inducing because it means you have been carrying weight that was never yours to carry, and you may have been doing so for a very long time. Boundaries are another essential piece of this, and they deserve to be understood differently than they usually are in popular conversations about empathy. Boundaries are often framed as walls, as the act of keeping people out, as a form of self-protection that necessarily involves some degree of coldness or distance. But for the empath, healthy boundaries are not walls. They are membranes, permeable enough to allow genuine connection, firm enough to prevent unconscious merging. A membrane allows exchange. It allows relationship. It allows the empath to be present with another person's pain without becoming that pain, to witness someone's struggle without absorbing it into their own body, to offer care without offering themselves entirely. This is a skill. It is not something that arrives naturally for someone whose nervous system is wired for permeability. It requires practice, and it requires support, and it requires the willingness to tolerate the discomfort that comes from doing something unfamiliar. Because for many empaths, the first time they hold a boundary, the first time they say, "I can hear that you are in pain, and I am not going to take that pain into my own body," it feels like abandonment. It feels like failure. It feels like a betrayal of the very thing that makes them who they are. But it is not. It is the beginning of sustainable empathy. Empathy that can last a lifetime because it is not destroying the person practicing it. Jung's concept of individuation is useful here. This idea of becoming more fully and authentically oneself, of integrating the various parts of the psyche rather than being driven unconsciously by forces you have not yet examined. For the empath, individuation often involves a particular kind of work. The work of separating what is genuinely theirs from what was assigned to them. The work of reclaiming their own desires, their own preferences, their own emotional states from the web of others' needs and projections that have accumulated around them. It means asking, perhaps for the first time, what do I actually want? Not what would help this person, not what would make this situation easier, not what would prevent conflict or soothe someone's discomfort, but what do I want for my own life in this relationship from this moment? These questions can feel almost foreign to someone who has spent years, sometimes decades, in the position of the one who attends. But they are not selfish questions. They are necessary ones. Because the empath who does not know what they want becomes increasingly available to be shaped by what everyone else wants. And eventually, the self that remains is barely recognizable. There is something that happens when the empath begins this work of reclamation, something that surprises them. They expect to feel liberated and lighter, and sometimes they do. But they also often feel grief. Grief for the years spent carrying what was not theirs. Grief for the relationships that were built on a version of themselves that was performing care rather than freely offering it. Grief for the needs that went unmet because they were always too busy meeting everyone else's. This grief is valid. It deserves space. It is not a sign that something has gone wrong. It is a sign that something is finally being seen, and alongside the grief, something else begins to emerge. A quality of presence that is different from what came before. Not the presence of someone who is open to everything, absorbing everything, available for everything, but the presence of someone who knows themselves well enough to choose. Who can be deeply, genuinely present with another person's experience precisely because they are not being swept away by it? Who can offer real empathy, the kind that actually helps, because they are grounded enough in themselves to hold space for someone else without disappearing into them? This is the paradox of the empath's healing. The work of becoming more bounded, more individuated, more clearly themselves does not diminish their empathy. It deepens it. Because empathy offered from a grounded place is different from empathy offered from a place of merger and depletion. One sustains, the other exhausts. One creates genuine connection, the other creates dependency and resentment, even when both people involved have the best of intentions. And there is something that needs to be said clearly. Something that the empath who has been told their whole life that they are too sensitive needs to hear. Your sensitivity is not the problem. It has never been the problem. The problem, if there is one, is the absence of the tools, the language, the support, and the permission to inhabit that sensitivity in a way that honors both you and the people you care for. You were not given a broken nervous system. You were given a finely tuned one, in a world that does not always know how to accommodate it, and without the guidance to understand what you were working with. That is a different thing entirely. The empath who learns to understand their own psychology, who develops the capacity to distinguish between their feelings and others, who builds the kind of internal stability that allows them to be present without being consumed, who gives themselves the same quality of compassionate attention they have always given to everyone else. That empath does not become less sensitive. They become more whole. And wholeness is not the absence of feeling everything. It is the capacity to feel everything without losing yourself in the feeling. There is a moment that many empaths describe, usually after a significant period of inner work. A moment that is quiet and unremarkable from the outside, but seismic on the inside. It is the moment when you are in a room full of emotional noise, sensing all of it as clearly as you always have, and you realize that you are still here, still yourself, still intact. Not because you have closed yourself off, but because you have finally learned to be present without disappearing. That moment is available to you, not as a destination you arrive at once and stay forever, but as a capacity you build gradually through practice and self-compassion and the willingness to keep returning to yourself even when the pull outward is strong. Because the world needs empaths. It genuinely does. It needs people who can feel what others feel, who can hold space for pain without flinching, who can sense what is unspoken and respond to it with care. But it needs empaths who are whole, who are sustainable, who have learned to tend to their own inner world with the same reverence they bring to everyone else's. And you deserve that wholeness, not as a reward for all the caring you have done, not as something you earn by finally learning to take care of yourself, but simply because you are human, because you are here, because the depth of feeling you carry is not a burden to be managed, but a capacity to be honored in yourself first, before it can truly be offered to anyone else. If you have spent years wondering why you feel so much, why you carry what others seem to shed easily, why the world sometimes feels like it is pressing in from all sides with its noise and its need and its invisible emotional weather, I hope this has offered you something. Not answers, exactly, but language, a framework, a way of understanding yourself that makes the exhaustion make sense, that makes the sensitivity make sense, that makes you make sense. You are not broken. You are not too much. You are not failing at being human. You are navigating a particular kind of human experience that is genuinely demanding, genuinely complex, and genuinely worthy of understanding. And understanding, as always, is where everything begins. If you know someone who has spent their life feeling too much, carrying too much, wondering why the world hits them differently than it seems to hit everyone else, consider sharing this with them. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can offer another person is the language for something they have never been able to name. That act of sharing might be the first time they feel truly understood. If this video helped you feel seen, if something in it named something you have been carrying without language, I hope you will stay. There is more here for you, more conversations like this one, more space to understand the hidden landscapes of your own psychology. Subscribe if this is the kind of exploration that speaks to you. And if you feel safe, share your experience in the comments. Tell us what it is like to feel everything. Someone out there is reading, and your words might be exactly the thing they needed to feel a little less alone in their own sensitivity. Thank you for watching.